As long as I continue to hold him,
she was causing...
It's a tug of war,
right?
And so I just...
So you let her take the child. What did she then do with your son Joshua?
Well, she didn't feed him. And of course he's, you know, screaming in pain and agony.
And she doesn't want you to pick him up and comfort him.
Well, she didn't, that didn't even, I don't think, enter into her mind. I think she just didn't have any, I think it's sociopathic. She just... Now,
this was in early, what, February or January of 1999?
It would have, 4.5 months old would have put him at about the end of April or the beginning of May in 99.
99.
Yes.
Okay. Now, before the baby was born, she had been seeing a certain doctor's name, I forget, but I was right in his office.
Stephen Belton.
That's right. Dr. Stephen Belton. I went to his office. We're not going to play that tape for you today, but we might play it later. And I recorded what the chief nurse said, and I was a little shocked and taken back. But obviously, she was getting really good baby care for her unborn baby from him, because he's a...
OBGYN.
Yeah, OBGYN. GYN. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You get old and you get dyslexic.
Okay. Just go slow. Don't be nervous.
Trying not to be nervous here on my own show. Anyway, we're going to take your calls in about a half hour. Please don't call in just yet, because we have some tape we want to show you of Christopher. We're not going to show you the tape of him in Judge Erica Yu's courtroom back last, I think it was October, when we finally got permission. We're not going to show you the tape of him because we got him right here. And the view is much better close up here without that bulletproof glass.
The glass.
Yeah. You know, I always wonder why they have the bulletproof glass between the prisoners and the visitors, because the prisoners obviously is not going to shoot you. He doesn't have a gun. And the visitor got to go through screening, so they can't shoot out.
The reason for that is to keep you isolated.
Well, I got that.
You know, yeah, and as you know, some of the documents that you sent me in the last couple of weeks or last month were refused, sent back to you.
That's right.
And you sent them again.
And they were sent back again.
Yeah. So part of the whole strategy of this is to isolate you from the community, isolate you from help, isolate you from evidence,
and make you feel helpless.
So you have absolutely no choice.
So you give up.
And plead guilty, and if you don't plead guilty,
you spend 6 years.
They'll send you to a mental hospital.
Well, now we're jumping ahead.
Well, okay.
We'll get there. We got more than an hour, Chris.
All right.
We got more than an hour, and I'm going to let you tell your whole story. More than an hour, Chris.
All right.
We got more than an hour, and I'm going to let you tell your whole story because you've been waiting in jail and Patton torture clinic for years.
And Atascadero.
Right, and Atascadero mental torture clinic.
I'm glad you called it a torture chamber and not a state hospital, because that's what it is. Without hyperbole, that is what it is. And I'm gratified sitting here in September of 2006 to say to everyone at home that the federal government has taken over Atascadero and Patton in the last 2 months, because the violations of human rights, the abuses there are so egregious. So it's not just myself saying that these things are going on, but you've got the federal government going in and taking away leadership and taking over these facilities, along with the other three, Napa, Metropolitan, and Coalinga, so-called state hospitals. They're not hospitals in any sense.
Well, we are going to go to a tape in just a minute here, but we're going to give you Chris's story. It starts when you meet this girl back in 97, I think, right?
I think it was 97.
And you get married in 98.
Well, actually, we made a marriage commitment. I'm not proud to say this.
You had a common law marriage.
Well, we made a commitment before God and not before the public within a couple of months of meeting. And that's really what I did wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, and I brought a child into the world.
With a woman you didn't know very well.
Right.
You didn't know anything about her violent history in the Philippines.
I didn't know her well enough at all, including that. It was an unwise thing to do, especially considering it was unwise with respect to the child that was to come along. Because
your little son Joshua, who's now going on 8. Hold that thought. We want to take you now to a conference that was done on these kinds of issues, and we'll be back with a guy who's been out of jail after, and he's not convicted of anything, people. William Christopher, sitting here now today, has been convicted of nothing, but has already served over 6 years in a jail and a mental torture clinic, costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they say this man was not competent to stand trial. So you judge for yourself. Is this man competent to address the issues or not? And then we got the issues of whether his public pretender defender really had his best interests at heart. We're going to take off the hat because we got some hard-knuckle stuff to talk about tonight. In Detroit, Michigan, we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Families and separating fathers from children, and the cost to our society is devastating. I was talking about the devastation to children in our society because the government, through their policies, comes in and destroys families, and the children are the big losers because they frequently lose their relationship with their fathers, and that is devastating to children. Anytime you lose a parent, it's not healthy. Children who grow up without fathers in their lives are subject to all of the social ills that we have: substance abuse, crime, you name it. So the culture promoted by the government is literally destroying the lives of hundreds of thousands of children every year because the government interferes in the lives of families. And I don't believe that the people who are running these programs in these states, I don't think they know how to be parents. They shouldn't be involved in the lives of families. They're not capable.
To the system insider that says, I'm just doing this for the children.
I would say that that is a bunch of hogwash, because when you look at it, what is the educational background of people who work for the government in these various agencies? Who qualifies them to determine that they're doing this for the children? They aren't doing it for the children, they're doing it to the children. They are destroying children's lives. You know, if we examine the different people who can be parents, the natural parents, the adoptive parents, relatives, the worst parent that exists in America today is the state. The state is incapable of being a parent. Absolutely incapable.
When someone comes up to you and takes your children and says, this is for your own good.
This is a system that is driven by one thing: money and money only. These Michigan's unique because I think we're the only state in the country that has a friend of the court system. Or as one of the women who used to work for the friend of the court called it in her book she wrote, friend of the court, enemy of the family. The friend of the court and these various agencies around the country are enemies to families. It would be better off to leave the families squabble amongst themselves than to put them in the hands of all of these so-called workers who are doing it in the best interest of the children. It's not in the best interest of the children. It's in the best interest of the government agencies that are funded with hundreds of millions of dollars. The amount of waste in the child support industry is not to be believed. It is a fraud upon children and a fraud upon the nation. This is a fraud upon children and a fraud upon the nation. I would say that the media has heavily ignored our issues. There should be all kinds of media here for this conference. There won't be. I can almost bet my life on it. And how can I say that? Because I've been to many conferences over the years, and they heavily ignore us. Or they'll talk to some woman's organization and get their point of view about us. And that is the worst insult of all. Because the men who are here have all been victimized in one way or another, and their relationship with their children has been literally, in many cases, destroyed. That's the story that should be told. You don't go to the other side and ask them what they think of our movement. They don't come to us and ask us what we think of the women's movement.